This podcast is brought to you in part by VIP Marketing and Advertising.
Agency new business has changed for the better. This is an awesome episode. It's going to be two parts. Today, I'm interviewing Michael Gass from Fuel Lines, and he has the #1 spot on Google for agency new business. Find out how you can get your dose of your daily development next.
Welcome to your Daily Development with your host, Eric Elliott.
You're running away from the future, man. You gotta get caught up in the past. All right. Today I'm here with a friend, a consultant, a guru. I don't know if it's okay if I call you a guru. Someone that I think very, very highly of, and so do a lot of other folks in the industry. And we take everything that he says very, very seriously. Mr. Michael Gass from Fuel Lines Agency New Business is on the line with us today. And Michael, just to kind of give you a history on Michael spent some years in the agency business, and he actually did it the old school way when he did cold calling, and there was at one point where he took over, doing the cold calling and doing all the outbound calls, and he incorporated social media into how he started calling on new prospects and, more than anything, attracting new people. And one thing Michael says that I really believe in is he is the one that they come after now. He doesn't have to go and search for new business. He does it all out of his corporate office in Alabama. He has clients all around the world. He's been around the world, right, Michael? And one of my favorite lines from Michael is when he was on the West Coast. I heard this in another podcast, just researching Michael. Michael was on the West Coast, and he got a new client on the West Coast, and he said to himself, I wonder what I would have had to have done with traditional media to be able to attract this client. So that line alone speaks volumes. So everyone, I think you're going to get a treat today from hearing from Mr. Michael Gass. And Michael, I hope I didn't blow anything, right?
No, not at all. Good to be with you here.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to have you with us. So I'll go right into it. Michael, for the two people that live under a rock that have never heard you or heard you on a podcast, do you mind telling us about you and what you do?
Almost all my advertising career has been spent on the business development side. And then in 2007, I had this harebrained idea that I'd start my own consultancy. And I'd only worked in two markets pretty much my whole career, Birmingham or Nashville. And outside of those two markets, I had zero awareness.
Wow.
So I started very early on. A CMO study is really what triggered my interest in social media, where a CMO council study that was released the first part of 2008 said that 80% of the decision makers found their vendor, not the other way around. And so early on, I figured out it was more important to be found than to chase new business. And that's when I created the blog Fuel Lines, Fueling Ad Agency New Business, and started creating content. And as you had mentioned, my fourth client is on the West Coast in Costa Mesa, California. I'm in a suburb of Birmingham called Alabaster, Alabama. And I was afraid of putting Alabaster on my business card that anybody would take me seriously. But, I have clients literally. I've done work in almost all 50 states. I've done work for global agencies such as Havas Digital. It's just been incredible at how this has worked. And I've just celebrated my 10th anniversary, and in 10 years, I have never, ever made a single cold call for any new business.
Not a single cold call?
No.
Michael.
And I don't want to even do that because the dynamic is so different. If you do this correctly, for the prospective client to put you in a position of authority as a trusted expert, when they initiate the call, the dynamic of that relationship is just so different. And
Agreed.
You actually can control the relationship. You're not chasing the business. the prospective clients are actually pursuing you because of that expertise.
So, Michael, you brought up some great points just now. The one that's really impressive, you said you've done business with people in all 50 states, but people are coming to you, and it kind of puts you in that position that you're more of the consultant than the vendor. Do you agree?
I would be considered just like a prospective client looking for an agency. When you do it the old-fashioned way, when you're doing it through outbound marketing tactics, those interruptive type tactics, you're chasing business, and you are treated immediately as a vendor. And that's been a problem with small to mid-sized agencies, whether they're traditional ad agencies, digital media, or PR firms. When you're pursuing business like that and you're chasing business, you're viewed as a vendor. And it's so different, though, when they're actually looking for help and you're providing content that is of value, and they understand how you think, and they're receiving value from that. When they have that need, they'll initiate the contact, provided you have, the right calls to action.
Now, one thing I do know about ad agency owners, we are a little bullheaded, and some of us, we get into business, we hang a shingle, and then we forget the rest sometimes, or we forget some of the fundamentals. Or now, the fundamentals, the cold calling, I don't think those things matter anymore. But what does it take for an ad agency owner to say, I need to call Michael Gass? What are they going through? Put me in the mind of that business owner's head when they make that phone call or email to you.
They're going through a lot of new business directors, for one thing, and the average tenure is something like 2 years or less. And they're not having success. They're still trying to drive business. And the agency owner, business development is a historical problem for small to mid-sized agencies, primarily because they have no positioning. Mm-hmm. And they look and sound just alike. They do this every day for their clients. They can't do it for themselves. And that's, one of the primary things is to pick a target. Like, who is your primary prospect? And they can't articulate that. All they can think about is missed opportunity. And positioning is the foundation of new business. Before social media, and now in this social media stage that we're in right now, positioning is vitally important. It was so problematic when I started. The vast majority of my clients were in a perpetual state of rebranding because they could never make those hard business decisions.
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean, like changing the websites when you say rebranding?
Well, that's part of it. They were also in a perpetual state of redesigning the website. They could never get it finished. And it was so problematic back then that we started creating a niche blog off-site. That allowed me to help them to drill down much tighter than they had ever dreamed possible. And we'd do a one-day workshop where I would take them through the strategies, tactics, and tools that we utilize. And then the last part of the day, we spend on positioning. And I've done this with over 250 agencies. We've never failed to nail down their positioning in that 2.5-hour period.
Wow.
And they're sweating bullets. Like, we've been dealing with this for years, and how are we going to do this in 2.5 hours? But we come away with a primary target and then a strong point of differentiation and all the focus that's needed to create the niche blog. And we build that niche blog around the agency owner or owners, primarily because they're the least likely persons to leave. That's in right. Practicality. But it's also their vision. They've established this culture. And even though they are in this perpetual state of rebranding, it's still the agency is part of their DNA. But what they forget, and why most agencies aren't having success with social media and inbound marketing, is that they forget that it's people wanting to connect with other people. and they're trying to lead with a brick and mortar. So, they've got the agency Twitter account, so they check that off their list. They've got a blog, but the blog is on the website. It's usually content about the agency, promotions and new hires and awards and things like that the prospective client at that point doesn't care about. And this way, when we create this niche blog, we're leading with a person, and it's their individual social media accounts, their individual LinkedIn account, Twitter account, Facebook account even, and get them in building their online community, because building a community of prospects comes before business development. And a lot of times they're very poor at developing an online community of prospects because they're not creating content of value and they're not out there networking. And, the efficiencies of this is just so great. That's a part of what I have to do, is really help them to understand how beneficial social media is and how efficient it is and the freedom that it provides. And it allows small to mid-sized agencies to catch some really big fish.
Man, Michael, that's just a wealth of information you're giving us, man. It's just awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to go pay some bills real quick, and we're going to come right back with Mr. Michael Gass. So stay tuned.
You don't need a marketing agency. You do deserve very important placement. VIP Marketing and Advertising is a cutting-edge strategic digital, creative, media, and marketing partner that provides services for businesses of all sizes. To stay up to date on the latest marketing news, subscribe for email updates at veryimportantplacement.com.
Michael, do you think, I know 10 years ago, I think we all looked at social media as a fad or a joke. Do you think now business owners or agency owners or even ad agencies themselves take it serious, take social media seriously?
They take it serious, but again, they miss the point because most agency principals aren't participating, or they're participating so lightly, they just don't see the value, and they're missing the boat. Like in 2010, most agencies understood that this is not a communication channel that's going to go away. So, they jump in, but that's literally what they did. No strategy, no real understanding of how this works. And for many principals, they still don't get it. Because when I go in and say, they've got a Twitter account, maybe they got 23 people following them.
Wow.
And no connection to a primary target group. My audience in 2 Twitter accounts, Fuel Lines and then Michael Gass, we got 104,000 Twitter followers. That generates a significant amount of traffic to my site and a lot of opportunities for engagement. And then growing my online community around LinkedIn and then also Facebook and even Google+. I've got a Pinterest account. I'm active in Pinterest. And I've develop new business opportunities even from that platform.
Well, that's
amazing. But when you're sitting on the sideline and, you're not really a participant, you really don't fully understand how it works. And, it's almost funny to think that agencies are now selling social media as a service and they still don't get it.
Wow. Now, Michael, you brought up Pinterest. I mean, let's just say, I know my wife, she loves Pinterest, but if you mention it, to the average male CEO or president of an ad agency, they'll say Pinterest. What do I need to do with Pinterest? I mean, tell me more about that.
Well, some of these, it's good to just understand them and enjoy them for what they are. So, I've got a love for boating, and we've been in boats for a number of years. We own a houseboat. And our goal one day is to retire on a boat. So, I've got a board that has nothing but cruisers and houseboats and interior designs and things like that. I've got a board that's showing the image from all the various posts that I've written over the years. One of the things, as I was exploring how I could utilize Pinterest for new business, I visit a lot of agencies, and other agencies are curious as to my experience and knowledge of, what other agencies look like and how they match up. So I created an agency board of agency offices, and literally all around the globe, because I've had an agency as far as Madrid, Spain, to have a photographer to take photos just to include on my agency board. And then I get a call from B2B Magazine. The editor had asked a question in a LinkedIn group, is Pinterest good for B2B? And I shared with them my example, and I think I've got over 2,000 followers of that single board, and shared the example. And then I get a call from a B2B, the B2B magazine to do an interview. Mm-hmm. And then I was written up in B2B Magazine and also in their digital format. And, it's a part of building that kind of awareness. But, you don't really understand these things unless, again, you participate and you start thinking like a prospect.
Yeah. Now, I want to go back to one thing and come back to what you said about thinking as a prospect. You talked about agencies aren't positioning, Michael, and you also said, and it almost seems like agencies, they forgot to be consultants for themselves. And I saw a post that you had on Twitter, and you said ad agencies are moving more into consultancy. Well,
I suggest that they add that as a service line.
Right.
Because a lot of the average Fortune 500 company has 17 agency relationships. What they're looking for is expertise, and they're willing to pay for that. What would you feel like if you're kind of the agency, the primary agency at a company, and then they hire your competitor as a consultant? I mean, you just let the fox into the hen house.
Wow.
And they'll hire a consultant before they'll hire the agency. And what they're willing to pay for is expertise. And, it has a great net profit. And a lot of even the global agencies are adding consulting as a service line. There's been several articles written in Ad Age reflecting that. It's establishing that positioning of expertise. When we create that niche blog, there is such a focus. I was working with an agency in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. This is the old steel mining city that's seen its better days. There's a small agency there, and we're trying to help them with positioning. And I'm in their office for the workshop and looking around, and I see all of these electric guitars and things on the walls, and then discover that the agency owners are musicians. They play in a band. And Martin Guitar, that's based there, is one of their primary clients. It's actually their biggest client and their only national client. Mm-hmm. So in the workshop, as we're exploring their positioning and being able to leverage that expertise, we created a blog, and it targets musical instrument and equipment manufacturers. And so their branding for these instruments and for, the equipment, they're getting good traction from the blog. I mean, there's no other agency in this niche. Wow. It gives these that are outside of even the U.S. a reason to want to do business with this small agency in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. They go to this national conference in Anaheim, California, and we've done all of the work through social media to do networking prior to the event, connecting with event sponsors, speakers, and then prospects. They walk away with an invitation to meet with the owner and the C-suite executives at Peavey in Mississippi. And so they're in Meridian, Mississippi, with this great opportunity to generate new business, specifically because of this blog and this niche. They're willing to do that because that's not the only way they're going to generate new business. They still have a local bank, I think a community college. They've done some work for some resorts. They just picked up a new healthcare client. But here is Peavey, one of the largest equipment manufacturers in the nation, and they invited them to come and meet to work out a relationship to help them with their marketing.
That's great. That's incredible.
We had another agency. This is in Louisville, Kentucky, and Sheehan Associates, primarily a media agency. They wanted to grow more into a full-service agency. They had 43 people in the media department. They have a creative staff of 3 that included one of the agency owners. So 3 people in the creative department. It's in the midst of the recession. They're bottom feeding for any kind of new business. Little project works to build their portfolio. When we did the workshop and in our discovery session for the positioning, the 800-pound gorilla client that they had was Kroger, a grocery chain of stores, and they had been placing media for them for almost like 20 years. If that account ever goes away, I mean, the agency could literally go away.
Wow, they could lose everything.
They know that they need to diversify, and again, they want to grow the creative department. And how can we do that based on work that they can show? Because you can't just choose anything. You've got to have something to build upon. And one of the things that we recognized early on was that they helped Kroger start a lot of stores. So we came up with the store starters, marketing resources for great grand openings. They purchased the URL, thestorestarters.com, and started creating content. Without an RFP, without having to pitch for business, just based on the positioning the 2 agency owners had gleaned as the store starting gurus, Burlington Coat Factory reaches out to them and asks them to help launch 22 new stores. A big piece of business, and it comes by way of this positioning. And, they were never in any kind of a danger, and they're willing to drill down that deep. Just, here's our point of differentiation, because it lives off-site. So it creates no confusion on the website. It links from that niche blog to the website, because we're not going to hide the fact that principles, but we don't lead with that. We're leading with their knowledge of expertise.
All right, that's a wrap for part 1. It was jam-packed with info. We can't thank Michael Gass enough for being part of the podcast. But wait, there's more. There will be a part 2 to this, so make sure you stay tuned and check your feed in your SoundCloud, podcasts, iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcast or get your content. So just stay tuned for part 2 coming your way, and be sure to rate us wherever you listen to your content. A 1-star is really cool, but a 5-star would be awesome for us. This is your daily development.
Copyright 2017 VIP Marketing and Advertising. Produced by Craft Creative.
When all eyes are on you, make it count. From audio to video to graphic design and more, Craft Creative can do it all. We don't make commercials. We craft creative. See what we can do for you at wecraftcreative.com.